Now, we're going to relate this to all kinds of stuff from personal growth to parenting to leadership to working towards your goals and dreams and things like that, because there are very few things I have found in my life to be more important than knowing your why, or knowing why a rule is in place, or knowing why a thing is done the way it's done, or all kinds of things like that. Now, as we get into this, if you hang out with me till the end, I'll share a bit of a personal story too about a why behind things, and how having a why can help you be the person that you really want to be. And I'll share a little personal story about that. I could also say that, I was homeless at 16. And one of the things that helped me the most at that time was establishing my goals and figuring out why I had those goals, figuring out my routine, my decisions, my actions, and asking myself why I was doing those things and if they helped me towards my goals. And that was part of the thing that helped me get out of homelessness to start with. So I'll talk about that a little bit too. But what I really want to get down to here is every time I ask on social media, hey, what is your least favorite question to be asked? Most of the adults, and when I say most, I'm talking about 80% or more, say that they hate the question, why? And I don't understand that, because that is the most important question for a leader, for a parent, for anyone in a position of responsibility. Knowing your why is one of the most important things that you could possibly do or know.
Well, and for that matter, as an adult, if a kid does something, we go, why did you do that?
Right.
We expect our children,
to
our
know
tiny
why.
humans who have little experience in life,
Yep.
to explain to us in detail why they did something stupid.
If we're going to expect that, then we need to be able to explain why they're in trouble, why this rule is in place, why this needs done a certain way, and all of those things. See, because if a person understands their why, it makes making decisions easier for them. Knowing why they're doing something builds a motivation to do it. A lot of people bring their teens in here, their preteens, their teens. Oh, they're just not motivated. They just won't do anything. They won't do their chores or whatever else. I guarantee you these are the same parents who refuse to answer the question why. When a kid asks why, they probably say, well, because I said so. Well, because it needs done. Because I told you to do it. These are responses I get that they're natural, but these are responses we need to try to avoid when we're in a place of leadership, a place of responsibility, or in particular, parenting. We need to learn to avoid these questions because we do not want our kids to run away from the question why. We want them to be able to answer it, which means we need to be able to answer it too. What's up, One Piece and Bridget? Nice to have you guys on YouTube.
Well, and Tasha and I were talking about this yesterday.
Tasha being one of our other instructors here, for you guys that don't know.
With things like ADHD, command avoidance is a real thing.
It is.
So if you tell a kid, hey, go wash the dishes, or even if they're doing it, you're doing a great job washing those dishes, they're suddenly like, I don't want to do that. Why are you having me do that? That's stupid.
Yeah.
But if you explain to them why, the command avoidance lessens.
Right. See, and that's what helps people make better decisions. It is always going to be better to help your kids or whoever you're dealing with. It's going to be more influential if you help them make the decision for themselves. Don't make the decision for them. If you're always making the decision for them, we're going to have issues. Make sense? Right? So you have to make sure that they understand the decision-making process and why certain ways that we make decisions are important. If you, for example, if you have a rule in your home, if you help somebody understand why that rule is there, so she brought up dishes. Well, because the dishes need done, because if they don't get done, it's going to attract bugs, it's going to attract mice, it's going to make this house disgusting, and you're not going to want to live here. You're going to feel real bad living here and things like that. There, you gave them a reason why the dishes need done, and I can't do it right now, so why don't you hit it, right? So that's one thing you can do. What are we doing? Oh, we're doing our podcast, our Teammate Talks podcast, and today we're talking about the why factor. We're talking about why is important. So when you have rules in place, and I do this with my kids here on the mat, whenever I bring up the rules in class, I always bring up why that rule exists. No climbing on the bags. Why? Because 3 kids have climbed on the bags in the past, fell and broke their arms, right? So, why am I not allowed to spin circles? Well, if you're spinning circles, you got your arms out, you might hit somebody, talking about the little kids, right? You might get somebody hurt. Well, why am I not allowed to sit on the mat when we're training? Well, because someone's going to trip over you, fall on you, someone's going to get hurt, right? So knowing the why helps the kids understand better why the rule is there, and it helps them make the decision to follow that rule, not because they were forced to, but because they understand the importance of it. And this allows them to be more respectful of boundaries. It teaches them to be more respectful of rules, and it will help teach your kids respect other people's boundaries. And it also allows them to feel more confident setting their own boundaries, which is super important.
Well, and two, if we ask questions while we're explaining why, You say, well, you might trip and fall if you're spinning. That's why. What else do you think could happen if you're spinning?
Yeah, get them to think about what could happen or why. Make them think about the consequences. Ask questions, right?
And then they start being able to better critically think. And then you have to stop telling them why less often, because they're already coming to their own conclusions.
Right.
They will naturally on their own, with or without you. But if you guide them and explain to them why starting young, then they will critically think in the direction that you're wanting them to.
Right. And knowing why builds motivation. I already said that. So what I mean by that is, let's say we're talking about exercise. In my studio, my instructors are hammered to never punish with things that are good for people. So we don't punish with push-ups. We don't punish with sit-ups. We don't punish with running. Those are opportunities. Push-ups, sit-ups, and running. Well, why? Because I don't want people to have a negative association with something that's good for them. So if you constantly use, like I went to a studio one time to constantly use push-ups as a punishment, what happens is over time, the students start associating push-ups with being in trouble. Well, why do I have to do push-ups? I'm not in trouble. Why should I do push-ups? I didn't do anything wrong. So now they're running away from doing something that's good for them because they feel like that type of thing is only for people that act up. So never punish with things that are good for people. Instead, when we play a game, the winners win a certain amount of an exercise, and the people that don't win a certain amount of a different exercise or something like that, right? And like I said, knowing why to do push-ups. Well, push-ups are going to make your punches faster. They're going to make your punches stronger. You're going to be in better shape. Your cardio health is going to be better. Whatever it is, by understanding those things, now they go, okay, well, I don't like doing push-ups, but I do like having a fast punch. I do like having strong triceps. I do like this. Okay, I like the shape I'm getting in. Cool. Well, then you do the push-ups, right? So this is what I mean by knowing why builds motivation. Now, it also helps people understand the decision-making process. So when you're in a leadership position or a parent, your job is to guide people, including your kids, to make good decisions for themselves. Now, in order to guide them, knowing why you make a decision and how you go about making a decision helps them understand your decision-making process, which helps model for them how to make decisions themselves. And honestly, knowing your why makes making decisions much, much easier, much, much simpler. If you know your why, then you already kind of have an answer as to what sort of decision you need to make for whatever is in front of you. Now, I'll get into a little bit of that deeper a little bit later. But by doing this, by letting them know why, it gives the people the knowledge to make a good decision for themselves because that decision is good, instead of making that decision because they're afraid of a punishment, or instead of making that decision because they're scared of you in the moment. What that's going to do is it's going to cause them to act right when you're around or when they feel scared. But what about when they're not scared, when you're not around? They're going to do it anyway because they're going to be wondering why they're not allowed to do something or why they have to do something. And they're going to stop doing it the second they're afraid. So if you use fear to cause your kids to keep up with their chores, then the second they're not afraid of you, they will no longer keep up their chores, which is why we run into teens all the time. Well, when my kid was 8, 9 years old, they used to do chores and everything was great. Now they're 14, 15, I can't get them to do anything. But then you ask that same kid, hey, why is it important to do the dishes? And they don't know. 15-year-old kid don't know why it's important to do the dishes. Parents need a little help explaining it, right? They need to understand by that age why these things are important. My kid is 13. He understood by the time he was 9 why doing dishes was important, why taking out the trash was important, right? Those things, right? It helps them make better decisions for themselves. So how do you start something like this, though? Well, let's get into it. First, you need to make your why list, okay? To do that, you don't start with a list of your whys. You start with a list of your priorities, right? And this could be any priorities, such as character traits you want to be known for, your reputation you want to be known for. It could be wealth goals, success goals, career goals, relationship goals. It doesn't necessarily have to be goals, but anything that's kind of a priority or something important in your life. Your kids are important to you, so that goes on the list, right? If reading is important to you, taking time to read, then that goes on your list. It could be a long list, it could be a short list, it doesn't really matter. But you start with a list of priorities in no particular order, things that are important to you, things that are important to you that other people see in you. So for example, if perseverance and grit are important to you, then it's probably important to you that other people see you as a person with perseverance and grit. So that would go on your list. Then you go down your list and ask yourself why each one of those things is important to you. Why is it important to you that people see you as compassionate? Why is it important to you that people see you as driven? Why is it important to you to gain that wealth? Why is it important to you to get that successful promotion in your job, or to get to a certain place in your relationship, some goal in some relationship? Why are those things important to you? And write down 1 or 2 whys under each one of your priorities, right? Each one of those first priority lists. Now you have something I call the why list, right? Now you can look through your whys and start thinking about all your day-to-day routines, your day-to-day actions, your day-to-day words, your day-to-day decisions, and ask yourself, do all of your actions, words, and decisions move you closer to the why, or closer to the goals you listed in your priority list? Or do they match with the why that goal is important, right? Because if your actions, decisions, and words don't match your goals, or why those goals are important, then you need to cut those things out of your life. Those things need to drop from your routine completely, because that's just a time waste at that point. It's not getting you where you're trying to go. But once you have a list of your priorities, things that are important to you, you have a list of why those things are important to you. Now, every time you are faced with a decision, or faced with an emotional moment, or faced with a what do I do next type situation, go back to your list of priorities and go back to your list of why. Once you know why, it becomes easier to make a certain decision. So now I think it's time to share the story I teased at the beginning, right? So there was one time, y'all know I dress a little weird compared to some people. There was one time, and people don't say much about it for the most part. I usually get compliments. But there was one time 3 or 4 years ago, I was out in town, had my son with me, and someone made some pretty crude comments as to how I was dressed or something like that. And I turned around, I heard what he said, and I heard he was mad, and I got frustrated. I got defensive like anyone else would. But I decided to take a second before I said anything, and I smiled at him. And I was like, and I just told him, I was like, well, thanks for noticing, man. I really like these clothes. I appreciate that you noticed them. Sorry you don't like it. Too bad, And then they said something else rude, mean, started to step up into my space. And I kind of smiled at him again. And I was like, hey, man, it's not worth the trouble. It's not worth the trouble. This ain't a big deal. And I kind of said something nice to him. And he tried to be mean again. And I said something nice to him again. And then we walked away. The whole time, my son is staring at me real weird. He's like, and he talked to me later. He's like, Dad, I see you fight every week. Why would you back down from somebody like that? Easy, son. Because what was fighting going to gain me? It's going to get me kicked out of Walmart, right? What am I going to gain from that? He didn't like my clothes. What do we gain from fighting over it? Because whether he wins or I win, I'm not going to change how I dress. Whether he wins or I win, he's not going to change what he thinks. What do we get out of that? Nothing. So I told him, I was like, it's because of my why, right? So I want to be seen as someone who is courteous, compassionate, kind, but also, strong, disciplined, that kind of thing. And fighting that person would not achieve any of those goals. It would not achieve any of my whys whatsoever. So in that moment, I recognized that the thing my emotions wanted me to do would not achieve any goals. It would just set a bad example to my son. So instead, I kind of went, hey, this isn't worth it. I laughed it off. I made some jokes about it with the guy. I even made some, self-derogatory jokes or whatever you call with the guy. And we walked away from it. And when my son was kind of like, why did you do that? I'm like, well, because what do I have to gain from fighting? Instead, I have everything to gain from showing how much of a kind person I can be. Because anyone else that stopped and saw that interaction in Walmart, they're going to look at that dude and be like, hey, that dude's a jerk. What the heck's wrong with him? And if I was mean back to them, they're going to think the same thing about me. But if they look and see, oh, that guy's a jerk, but then they see me being nice and making jokes and just trying to make light of the whole situation, they're going to see me as a nice person. And that reputation is important to me. That's why I made that decision.
Well, and two, our why for training is not so that we can go out and beat the tar out of people who irritate us.
Well, and before you go any deeper in that, remember, everybody trains for a different why, and that's okay. Some people are in here because they want to train to be in a fight sport, and that's okay. But that's the vast minority, right? The small minority. The vast majority of people that come in here to train, they want to do something social. They want to do something fun. They want to get in shape. They want to learn some cool physical skills. They want to be able to defend themselves against someone who has no idea what they're doing in a fight. And those are all good reasons to train too. Not everybody who trains has to be training to be a fighter. Some people just train because it's fun. Some people just train to stay physical. Some people just train for a sport. right? There's lots of reasons behind things. You have to know your why. Sorry
Yeah.
for cutting you off there.
It's okay. It's normal. But because that's not our why, we're not looking for a fight, because honestly, fighting stinks. Even if you do it professionally, you hurt,
Yep.
you're sore.
Even if you win, it hurts, man. Even if you win, it hurts.
So going out and fighting someone because they say something we don't like, it goes against our why.
Yeah.
And being able to explain that to our son is really important.
Yeah, and the thing is why did I not fight a guy, or why did I not fight people in situations like that? Because it doesn't match my why list. It doesn't match my priority list. It doesn't match my goal list. And I am not going to make any decisions. I am not going to take any actions or say any words that don't push me closer to my relationship goals, my career goals, my training goals, my parenting goals. If it doesn't push me towards that, then I'm not doing it. Because why? It's dumb. It's just a dumb thing to do. If I have no reason for it, and what would be my reason for it? What would be my reason for allowing myself to get goaded into a fight in Walmart? What do I gain from that? A reputation? No. An ego? What am I going to do? Run around bragging about it for the next week? Because that's what people do, right? When they get goaded into a fight, whether win, lose, or otherwise, even if they lose, they go around tell everybody they know that they kicked some dude's butt, right? And everybody they say that to is looking at them like, hey, yeah, man, and rolling their eyes like, whatever. Because guess what? Nobody freaking cares. The only people that care is you, the one running around bragging about it as if you did something big. And none of the people you bragging to give a crap. They all know you're full of crap. They all know it, right? The thing is, it's easy to see through. But honestly, we hear about this stuff all the time, but it's less than 10% of the population does this kind of stupid crap. It really is. But they're loud. So we hear about it constantly because they tell everybody, oh, some dude, whatever. And I put him in his place. And if you actually watched what happened, you'd be like, you didn't put him in his place. You just yelled and did some stupid stuff and took a swing at somebody. There was nothing, right?
And also, why do you feel the need to put another adult in their place?
Yeah.
You're not going to change
It's not your place,
their
man.
mind.
You're not going to change their mind no matter what you do. Win, lose, or draw. If you fight over something dumb and you win, you're not changing their mind. See, a lot of people think, well, if I fight him over and I win, that means he was wrong and I was right. What? Since when did who wins the fight have anything to do with who was wrong and who was right? And by the way, if we're talking about someone making a snide comment and wanting to fight about it, that's an opinion. A comment about how someone dresses, that's an opinion. And a comment about someone's haircut, that's an opinion. And here's the thing, if I don't know you, like I don't know this person named Hall family over here that tried to call me a lady and say something about shaving my face. I don't know you. I don't care. I don't care what you got to say.
Me to shave my face? I don't feel like it.
In which I come in and fight her. It'll be fun. She's probably one of my best.
Winner shaves their face.
She's probably one of my top 3 fighters in here. It'd be fun. Okay, so we cover most of those things. So this is why the why is important. So as a parent, do not run away from the question why, especially with your kids. Tell your kids why. Take that extra minute to tell them why washing dishes is important. To tell them why getting the things out of their room, dishes out of the room is important. Why it's important to keep your stuff clean. Why it's important to do these things so that they will make the decision to do them. So this has happened. I've always done this with Axel, explained why. Now Axel's never had, he's my son, he's never had an actual like say chore list, but we sort of do a thing where, hey, if it needs done and it's not gotten done and you have a minute to do it, and you notice it needs done, then whoever's there, you do it. You just do it, right? And so there's been times as like dishes have stacked up in the sink or whatever for a few days, and then I've just walked in and kind of seen him doing it, right? Without necessarily being asked to do it. Sometimes we have to ask him to. Hey, I can't get to the dishes, bud. Will you handle him? And he'll say, yeah, sure. But he knows why they need done. He knows he doesn't want roaches in the house, doesn't want mice in the house, doesn't want any of that stuff going on. So if he sees it's nasty, instead of going, ew, that's nasty, someone should clean it, he cleans it because that's what a responsible adult does. Right? And he's not even an adult. So if he can handle that at 12 or 13 years old and you have a 14, 15, 16-year-old that struggles with it, don't blame the kid. Don't blame the teenager. It might be because you never help them make good decisions for themselves. As a parent, you have to let kids make decisions for themselves, try to guide them to the right decision. But if you make all of their decisions for them, and I mean all of them, then they will just they will go to the agentic state, and they will just do whatever they're told to do, or won't do it when they hit their rebellious phases in later teen years, or won't do it because they don't understand why it's important. So the whole time it's been you making them do something, not them deciding it needs done. Instead, from a young age, yes, you have to make decisions for them. I'm not saying don't. So like if a student runs across a challenge in class and they've been doing real good in class, but now something is challenging them and they're struggling with it and they want to quit, it's not a good time to make them make that decision to quit, but it is a good time to guide them to a better decision. Well, what is it about the challenge that makes you want to quit? Well, it's so hard. Okay, but if you quit now, is it going to get easier or is it going to stay hard? Well, it's going to stay hard. Okay, but if you keep going, is it going to get easier? Well, I don't know, maybe not. I bet it will. I bet it'll get easier if you keep going. How about this? How about we put in 4 more weeks? You put in 4 more weeks of training, and if it didn't get easier in that time, then you can go ahead and quit. And that way, they get to make a decision for themselves, but you're guiding them down the right path and not letting them make an impulsive decision. So impulsive decisions are another part of this. For example, when I want something, when I want to buy something, I first ask myself why I want it. And if I only want it because some ad or it looked cool on a shelf, I'm not going to buy it right now. I might buy it, but I'm not going to buy it right now. I don't impulse buy because I have a rule. First, I ask myself why I want something. Second, I don't buy it just because I want it right now. I walk away from it. If I still want it in 30 days or 60 days and I haven't forgotten about it, then I'll buy it, especially if I have a reason that I want it, a why behind wanting it, right? But if I don't have a why behind it, I don't have a use for it, a reason for it, or something, I don't buy it just because I want it. I sit down for 30 days, 60 days, and then if I still want it, I buy it. I've taught my son this, and he does it with his own money the same way. He won't buy something until he's wanted it, and remember, he wanted it for several months first, and then he'll go, you know what, I've been wanting this for 6 months, I'm going to go ahead and buy it. Cool, that's a good way to make a decision.
One of our dads and I were actually talking about this today. We both do like the save for later in Amazon.
Yeah.
And if we haven't bought it or even remembered it for 6 months and it's still in there, we just like delete it because there's no point in being in there. If it's been in my save for later for 6 months and I haven't bought it, I don't need it or actually want it.
And this goes back to knowing your why. Knowing your why can help you save money by preventing you from making impulse buys and things like that. As long as you make sure that you understand why behind every move you make, every decision you make, every purchase you make, every way that you spend your free time or spend your working time or spend your productive time, as long as you know why you're doing things a certain way, then you can get there. Now, here's one for the leaders out there, okay? For the CEOs, the board of directors, the managers, people in positions like that. Make sure the people you lead, teach them how to do it the way by the way, if you're in one of those positions, then you already know everything in the business needs to be systemized so that the experience for the customers is consistently good, consistently the top it can be. Everything needs to be systemized, right? There's a system to do everything in this business, and there's a why behind every system and how it's done. But first, I teach my employees how to do the thing by the system. Then as they start understanding the system, I start teaching them why the different pieces of the system are done the way they are, why we frame this the way we do, why we say this the way we do, why we teach this the way we do, why we plan classes the way we do, all of it. And then once they understand the why, they no longer are required to follow the process or the system. Because once you understand why behind something, you can improve the how. So if you've learned how to do something and you're doing that thing, you can't improve how you do it until you know why each part is done that way. Once you know why each part of what you're doing is done a certain way and you fully understand the why, then you can use the why to improve the how. This is what CEOs and business leaders like myself do to grow their businesses. We start with a system that we know is not perfect. We start with something that that just makes something happen, that makes an action and provides a consistent experience. Then we watch that experience happen and we understand why we're creating that experience, and we slowly adjust the system and the experience to improve the things based on why we're doing it. So when someone reaches out to us about classes, the very first thing we ask is about age. Why do we ask that? Because our tuition is based on age, it's based on attendance, it's based on program. So and we know that you want to know tuition. So the first thing we ask, and it's too complicated to put in one form. So the first thing we ask is age, right? Once we have the age, we're going to send you all the details of the program that they're good for and all the details of all the different tuition options that are available to them for that program. right? And we have a reason why we do it that way. Now, once you understand the why behind doing it that way, you can start improving the how by changing the way we phrase it, changing the way we ask the question or things like that to improve on it. And that goes all the way to setting appointments. Once someone does decide to set an appointment, when they come in, they don't just jump in class. They come in and they get a 10-minute one-on-one with one of the instructors. They get to know the instructor. They get to learn a couple little things. They get to break the ice a little bit with some real easy stuff that you can master in less than 10 minutes, like super, super simple stuff, right? Then they can jump on the floor if they like, and then they get a free week trial, right? But there's a whole system to doing these intro classes. From the moment they step in the door to the moment they leave the mat that first day, there's a whole system. And there's a whole system for following up with them across the next 2 weeks, right? And once you know the why behind those things, you can start improving those things. So once I teach a teacher how to do the intros and why each part of the intro is done that way, I give them the freedom to change the techniques, to change the order, to change the way they do it, to change the way they approach it based on different people that come in, because if they understand why, they can better the how, right?
And one of our younger assistants who's been helping us for a couple years, they are also helping with some of our summer morning classes. And as part of that process, I've been taking part of their training and having them help plan those classes. And in doing so over the last several weeks,
then they learn why we do certain drills, why we put certain drills in certain orders, so it builds on each other, all of that.
And by helping with that, they are now starting to light bulb and see, oh, this is why all of these little things you've been talking about are so important. Yep. Yes, and you don't understand that until you start doing the background stuff and planning these classes and seeing how all these little cogs and wheels have to flow together.
How is it do you always teach people to be so good at that defensive side? Oh, because we start at the easiest part without the defensive side. We start with the footwork, then we start with the timing, then we go to the chamber, then we do the strengthening, then we do the accuracy, then we do the strength, and now we do it live. Then we put the gloves on and we do it live. And all that whole process takes 5 or 6 weeks. But at the end of that 5 or 6 weeks, you're going to have a really solid, really well-timed sidekick. Everybody is, as long as they tried hard during that process. But it's important for the instructor to lay it out in a way that's doable for them in the moment, but doesn't push them too far. If we just went straight to, this person's throwing a punch at your head and you're going to stop it with a D side, they're never going to get it. They first need to learn the footwork. They need to learn the chamber. They need to learn the balance. They need to learn the strength. They need to learn the kick. They need to learn the timing. They need to learn the accuracy. And we do different drills for each of those. Once they get all that put together, now they can do it for real. And this always drives me nuts about combat sports. I say this on a lot of podcasts, I know, but I'm going to say it again. Combat sports are the only sports that you can watch somebody training in or see somebody training in, and people will watch somebody training in a combat sport, and every other word will be, well, that'll never work in a fight. Well, that'll never work in a fight. Why are they doing that? Well, that's pointless. That'll never do anything in a fight. We can be working on a sidekick chamber. Well, that'll never work in a fight. Of course not. The chamber's not meant to work in a fight. The chamber's meant to set up a technique that will work in a fight. Of course the chamber's not. But you can watch somebody running sprints and be like, we have this all the time. We could have our students out here running 2 miles, and someone will come by and be like, well, that'll never work in a fight. I don't know why you're doing that. As if cardio is not important in a fight. Are you serious? If you watch a soccer player running sprints, you're like, look at them training for their sport. You watch a soccer player doing passes, you're like, look at them training for their sport. But if you watch a martial artist throwing the same kick on the bag over and over, that'll never work in a fight. It won't work until they get the technique good enough to make it work. It's as if breaking down skills to learn them and get better at them is what makes you a better fighter. Fighting is not what makes you a better fighter. Fundamentals is. You have to train those fundamentals to make sure you're throwing the kick properly, to make sure you're throwing the punch properly, to make sure you're setting up the correct angles, make sure your feet are lined up, make sure your foundation is set so you can hit hard. You have to have all these things in place. You can't just learn that stuff by fighting all the time. You have to do drills that break each one of these things down so you learn it before you can actually use it. Right?
And as an instructor, as this assistant is seeing, they know the how. Now they're seeing the why. Everything is broken down and systemized and done exactly how it is, because we can't give our students the why of each individual broken down piece without knowing how and why ourselves. Well, just like as a parent, we can't break down the hows and whys if we don't think about them and give that detail to our kids.
Yeah, and as part of our process for doing drills, we have 7 steps to drill success. We have to do it under a minute. But one of those steps is making sure that the students get one reason why we're working on something. And you can do that by inspiring them. For example, say we're doing a footwork and sidekick chamber thing. Well, then we can inspire them by showing them how that turns into a step up side, a fadeaway side kick, how it can be used in a fight, this, that, and the other. And then once they see what they're building to, they're more likely to follow the steps to get good at it. But you have to follow the steps as you go, right? But all of this happens because of the why factor. Never run away from the question why, especially if you're a parent and you're trying to guide your kids to make better decisions for themselves. You absolutely need to understand why you need them to do something, why something needs done, and make sure that they understand it as well. Everything in this business has a why. Our tuition structures have a why, which our tuition is going to go up again soon. There's a reason for that too. I don't like it. I want to keep our tuition as low as possible. I managed to make some moves to lower our tuition in the fall of last year. I was super excited about that, but things have changed this year and I may have to look at raising it. But I don't do these things just because, oh, I need more money. Oh, I need this. Oh, I want to make more money. No, I have like 5 or 6 whys to this. Why raise tuition? Well, because it's being difficult to cover costs. It's become very difficult to cover costs because we do all-inclusive tuition. A lot of studios, they'll have a tuition, right? But then you have to pay belt test fees and rank advanced fees. And when you go to an intermediate rank, your tuition goes up. You go to advanced rank, you go into an upgrade program. You go to black belt class, you go to upgrade program. And every one of these is more and more expensive. And I hate it. I hate it. So here we do an all-inclusive tuition, right? Whatever you pay monthly, everything's included in that. If you earn your way on the leadership team, still included. If you're on the competition team, still included. Need to borrow sparring gear, still included. It's all included in your tuition. You rank up, still included. Black belt test, still included. So yes, our tuition is higher, a lot higher than the dude down the road. But the dude down the road is nickel and diamond with all these other things. I don't do that. Our tuition is all inclusive, and our tuition covers our rent, our insurance, our gear, our equipment, our payroll, because we've got 5 employees here. We do this full time. That's one of the big differences between us and most other places in the city. We do this full time. This is what we do. We are professionals at it. We are not hobbyists that teach a couple nights a week at the Y. We are full-time martial artists. We are full-time fighters. That's the difference. We are full-time teachers.
Please know, our family is living off of the salary I get paid.
Yeah.
Every dime of everything else goes back into the studio.
I'm the owner and the lowest paid person here. I get paid $100 a week. That's my pay. I get $100 a week. We live off everything she gets paid, and then I have other instructors on salary too that live off what they make here, right? So that's another considering factor. Yeah. But our biggest considering factor on this one is rising material costs, rising equipment costs, and most importantly, rising insurance costs. Our insurance is going to go up by $2,000 a year this year. $2,000 a year, which means we might have to raise tuition by $5 or $6 a month, which doesn't sound like much, but I know that's a lot for some people, right? Our tuition's already pretty high. But that's the difference. Why is our tuition high? Because our tuition's all inclusive. You don't have to pay for anything else unless you buy your own sparring gear down the road. That's about it. Need an extra uniform? That's about it. Nothing else. Everything is all inclusive. Your belt fees, your rank fees, all of that is rolled into tuition. So yeah, there might be a dude down the road. You can take classes 2 nights a week for $75 a month, but they're probably hitting you with belt fees. They probably aren't even insured. I need you to keep that in mind. Most studios under 50 students don't even carry liability insurance.
So if they do something that
or someone gets hurt, then the only way you're going to get your medical expenses paid is if you sue them. With somewhere insured like us, we can help with that. Our insurance can help with that. But that's one of the things that makes us more expensive. We are insured, right? We're insured and we're not bonded. I wish we could get bonded, but cool. That's a whole nother thing. But to be bonded, you have to have as much cash in an account as an entire year's worth of revenue, which is nearly impossible for a business like ours. We run on a 10% margin, 10 to 15. That means most months our profit is only 10% of what we bring in. Got to keep that in mind. And then all that money goes back to the studio.
Little.
Yeah, it's a little. And I do that on purpose. We could be running with a 40% margin, but then the student's experience would suck. What do I mean by that? We could run a 40% margin, 40% profit, if she ran the front floor alone and I ran the back floor alone.
But it would suck.
But it would suck because now we'd have 20 students in a class to 1 instructor instead of having 1 instructor to every 6, 7 kids in a class, right? Or in Tigers, we keep 1 instructor to every 5 or less, right? So we do this, it makes us a little more expensive, but we do this so that our students learn better, so that our students get more one-on-one time, so that our students have plenty of help and instruction. That's one of the reasons our tuition's a little higher, because it's not just one person teaching 37-year-olds. It's 3 people teaching 20 or 15 7-year-olds. 3 people at 15, 4 people at 20. But that creates a better experience for you guys, so it costs more. but that's what you get, right? If you have to pay more to get a better experience. It's just how it is. And when after my third or fourth year in this business, I decided I didn't want to be just like every other instructor that's not insured and is just doing it as a hobby. I wanted to be the best studio around, but to be the best studio around, you also have to be one of the more expensive. Yep. You have to. But everyone wanted me to do upgrades. Everyone was telling me at that time, oh, well, you charge your beginners this, and then when they get through the first 3 belts, their tuition doubles. Then the next 3 belts, their tuition doubles. It's the only way to make money. What? So the longer they train with me, the more they have to pay? Does that sound right to y'all? Because, wow, I would never have got my black belt if that was the case. Or you got to sell upgrade programs to leadership and to weapons and to tricking and trick kicks and flips. No, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to have those programs, but kids are on their way into them. People are on their way. I shouldn't just say kids. Adults are on their way into them too. I'm going to make it work-based, ethic-based. I don't want it to be money-based. Why not, instead of having all these upgrades and all these nickel and dimes and test fees and all that, why don't I just charge one tuition that's higher than anyone else, but includes all those costs in it? Isn't that a lot simpler? Me personally, I'd rather pay $175 a month to know I'm paying $175 a month for every part of the service I'm getting than to pay $100 a month, but every 2 months I got to give another $50. And every other 2 months I got to give another $100. And for belt fees or for rank fees or for testing fees or for raised tuition on intermediate ranks, I would quit if every few months I was hit up for another. If my classes were $75 or $100 a month, but every couple of months I get hit up for another $30, another $50, another $100, I would quit. I would much rather pay $170 a month and not have those extra fees hit me any day of the week. I'd rather pay the higher tuition to know what I'm going to be paying. It's the peace of mind of knowing exactly what I'm paying without hidden costs coming up along the road, right? But we have a why behind all of this. My point is, everything you do needs to have a why behind it. Everything in our business has a why behind it. We just closed one of the early Tigers times on the level 2 floor. Why? Because one of those classes for months now has only had 3 students in it, and I have 4 instructors. 4 instructors and 3 students, that doesn't create a great experience. So I want the classes to go back together. So we're back to 8, 10 kids in a class because I got 3 to 4 instructors that day. We can handle that many kids, no problem, right? And that way, we're not having a few kids getting a crappier experience because they don't have partners to work with or something like that, So, and we might bring that class back. If that class gets overcrowded when school starts, we'll start a new class back. And we'll have a reason for that too, right? It's just how things work. So, I think I gave most of the examples I was thinking of. Everything in this business has a why. I told my little story. I talked about being homeless. When I was homeless, this is the first time anyone ever told me that you could never achieve your goals if you didn't know why you were going for the goal, or if you didn't know why your actions and decisions made an impact towards that goal, then you were never going to achieve it. So when I was homeless at 16, after the first 3 months, I went, I don't want to live like this ever again. I don't want to live in this town ever again. There were protests about me because I was homeless. I was in such a small town. It was only 2 of us that were homeless, and people hated homelessness so much that they protested us even being able to stay in city limits because we were homeless, right? I had cops running me off. I had a cop choke slam me on the pavement because I was out after midnight one night, all because I went to visit a friend who was in a car wreck in the hospital whose parents refused to come visit him. So I went to go visit him, but I was 17, and that meant I was out after curfew. And when I tried to explain and get to the hospital and show my emancipation paperwork, I got choke slammed to the pavement that night, right? And sent to jail for the night. That sucked. I spent more nights in jail when I was 16 or 17 than I can count. You know how many crimes I got charged with? None. It was because I was homeless. I was charged with the crime of homelessness, right? So when I was there, I wanted to get out of that. I didn't want to live like that no more. So I put down some goals. I want to find a way to go to college. I want to find a way to get a good career. I got into blue collar stuff. I was like, I'll do blue collar, I'll do trades. I don't care. I was raised as a mechanic. Being a mechanic was not new to me. Right? I grew up in the blue. I did farm work too. I grew up on the blue collar stuff. So I was looking for anything that I could do. So I laid out some goals. I want to make some money. I want to get an apartment. I need a place to stay. I've got this job. I'm going to go looking for better jobs while I work this job. I was working in restaurants at the time. I was a line cook. So I did my line cook stuff while I worked for farms off and on doing farm work. And I worked for shops off and on doing oil changes or little jobs for them or whatever else, right? Putting together any money that I could with the larger goal of getting into a more solid career or getting into college, which is what I managed to do. I managed to get into college. I only could go for 2 years because I couldn't afford the loans. My parents weren't going to do FAFSA for me. I had to do it based on my income, which was really stunk because when you're 17, they require your parents to be on your FAFSA. I had to jump through so many hoops for them to even accept my college application. I had to wait till I turned 18, which was 2 weeks before the semester started. I had to wait till I turned 18, which was 2 months after I graduated high school, before I could even be considered for student aid.
And technically, it was all past the enrollment date.
Yes, and so when I got it all done, the enrollment was filled. There was no room for me in the college. Luckily, the dude that ran the program I was trying to get into agreed to do an interview with me. He sat and talked to me for half an hour and said, you know what? I'm going to make room for you. I like you. You work hard. You're homeless. You deserve a break. And he gave me my chance. And he brought me into the program, and he even pulled some strings to get me out of the barracks style dorms and put me in the nicer new dorms too, because he knew that I'd been homeless and knew that I wasn't going to want to sleep in barracks with 50 other dudes, right? So they put me in a nice place, right? So, but I only was able to get there because I knew my why and I was relentless in my pursuit of it. I never made any decisions or took any actions that went against my whys. And yes, this includes relationships, our relationship. I have goals of where I'd like to be with our relationship, but we can only get there by talking about those goals, by understanding the why behind those goals and working together to make them happen. For example, I know she has relationship goals with me too, and I know she's expressed them, and I know that I go through sometimes weeks at a time where I am not good at keeping up with them, and I have to constantly remind myself, dude, you got to do better. You got to do better to hit these goals to help her out, and then she'll help me out. And then I say, hey, I understand I've not been the best for the past couple weeks. I'm sorry. I'm trying to work on doing better, and I try to make little moves at a time to get back to where I need to be, stuff like that. But you have to understand your why to get motivated to do the things you need to do to be successful. You want to know why less than 7% of the U.S. population are entrepreneurs? Because it's really freaking hard.
It's so hard.
Because it's really freaking hard, and it's extremely risky, and you are the safety net. There is no safety net. When you own the place, you are where the buck stops, man. Everything falls to you to make sure that everything gets done at a high level, gets done in certain things. It's really stinking hard. And if you don't have a direction, and you don't have goals, and you don't understand how to break things down, and you don't understand systems, and you don't understand psychology, and you don't understand influence, and you don't understand how to sell things, you don't understand how to market things, then you better be able to learn really stinking quick. It's okay if you don't know those things, but you need to recognize that you don't know them. You need to understand why they're important, and then you need to go learn them as fast as humanly possible. I stayed up for an entire week one time just learning how to make ads on social media. I didn't sleep for a week because I needed to understand it then and there. We were going to go under if I didn't figure out social media ads. So I went a week. I contacted as many people as I knew who were successful with them. I interviewed with them on the phone. I asked them why behind certain things. I asked them why they did content the way they did, why they used the videos they did, why you used the pictures they did. And when I understood their why, I was able to build my own system. And eventually, within a year, I was outdoing the people I learned from. And I'm still outdoing them when it comes to advertising, right? That stuff is hard. Yeah. Hey, Brandon, yeah, San Antonio. Oh, man, that's down in Texas.
Yes, it is.
Hey, yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, a lot of people really loved these podcasts. They went from 30 minutes to an hour back in the day. A lot of people really loved them. It's the number one thing that people have asked me to bring back because it allows us to go more in depth. Like when we talk about our words of the week, character development, stuff like that with classes, we have 5 minutes, right? We have 5 minutes to try to break down a really big, deep message and give it to people who are also in pain because they're stretching at that time, right? But these live videos give us a chance to go deeper and talk to parents and talk about how we can do things better as parents, as community leaders, and things like that. If we learn to understand influence, we learn to understand motivation, right? When we learn to understand those things, we are harder to influence if we understand influence. We are harder to sell to if we understand sales. I feel like everybody, no matter what your job or career or goals are, should understand how sales works and the psychology behind it. Because if you don't understand those things, then you're being manipulated 10 ways from Sunday by everyone that crosses your social media feed every single day.
Going back just a little bit to what we were talking about, how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. I have a family member. Of course, I want you guys to understand, we have been told not to do this business by family so many times, it's not even funny.
Oh yeah. Until about 5 years in, there was one of them, like my dad found out how much money we were making 5 years in, and he went, okay, never mind. And he never brought it up again.
But in 2016, I had an entrepreneur family member who has made millions of dollars tell me, because we were considering me going full-time. At the time I was working
which
at
we
another
are both
job.
full-time now.
Yeah, but at the time we weren't, and we were like, it was a 5-year goal, and I was talking to him, and he goes, don't do it. Don't do it. You don't want to do this. He wouldn't tell me exactly why, but he's like, don't do it. You don't want to do it. It's a bad decision.
Because it's extremely hard, and 80% of started businesses fail.
Yeah, and
because you have to be better than 80% of people to succeed. Understand that I did not say above average. Above average will not make a successful business. It has to be above average. It has to be top tier, or you will not make it longer than a couple of years full time. Now, could you run a hobby business, a side hustle? Absolutely. I'm talking about running a full-time business that is your full-time job that you make a living with. That you have to be better than above average to do.
Yeah. And what's funny is a year later, we had to just pull the cord and me go full-time because of how my full-time job was going.
And it was scary because at the time we weren't making enough money. We were not making enough money to pay our bills. And we had to just pull it and go, okay, we got 1 month to grow by $2,000 a month or our bills ain't getting paid no more, right?
I had
1 month.
I had like 6 weeks to get really darn good at my part of the job,
which was sales. So she had 6 weeks to figure out how to do sales well enough to sign up 30 people in that time so that we could make enough money to pay, so she could make enough money for her own paycheck. That's right. No, it was crazy. It was wild.
Commission.
And that's what I mean. You go to I love entrepreneurship, and if you want to start a business and you're really dedicated to it, I will back you. I will finance you. I will teach you. I will mentor you. I am all for it, right? But you need to understand just what you're getting into.
And you need to know your why.
And you need to understand how scary it is, because even now I have employees, and even now I have to look at budgets sometimes. We lost $6,000 last month. We paid $6,000 for the right to work last month. We didn't make money. We didn't break even. We lost $6,000. And it looks like we're going to lose another $3,000 this month. That's business. But then come September, October, we're going to make that money back plus some. It's how business works. So if you're scared, if you're timid about wondering where your next dollar is coming from, business is not for you. Business is not for you. The only reason it became for me is I know what it's like to live homeless. I know what it's like to be happy and still not know where your next meal is coming from. I know what it's like to live hungry and be wondering all day, how am I going to make $3 so I can get a snack by the end of the day? How am I going to make $50 by Friday so I can pay the gas to get to work? How am I going to do these things, right? And so because I already lived that way, entrepreneurship was just a short step from that, because entrepreneurship is almost the same thing. But if you don't think you could handle a life of homelessness for 3 months, then you can't handle running a successful business as a full-time career.
Plus, he doesn't work well for others.
I don't. Because every time I have a job, my brain wants to make it the best, highest quality, most efficient thing ever done. So when I was a detailer, a car detailer for a BMW dealership, and I worked on Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Jaguars, I got to drive all kinds of cool stuff, y'all. But when I was in that job, I was only making $8 an hour. But you better believe that I was doing like mirror-like polishing finishes on black cars. I was doing high quality work. And I was doing it as efficiently and as quickly as you could ever expect anyone to be. So much so that they decided to hire somebody to help me finally, because I was doing so much overtime, right? So they finally hired somebody to help me, and I trained that person for months. And they were terrible at the job. And then I found out that person was making $5 more an hour than me. That's when I had a problem. That's when I went, oh, hey. So I went up to the boss and said, hey, the dude I'm training is making $5 more than me. I'm doing all the work that you're making the money on. I'm making the cars pretty here. Why am I not getting at least that, if not more? Oh, well, you're just a kid. Guys, I was 19, 20. Just a kid. Maybe I am, but the quality of my work is speaking for itself, so much so that you have me training people and paying me less than them because I'm a kid. Are you crazy? Guys, I've had a 15-year-old working for me that got paid $30,000 a year because they were good at their job, because they could run a whole floor worth of classes and teach assistants and teach leadership by themselves at the age of 15. So I still gave them $30,000 a year because they were working full time for me. So I gave him 30 grand a year. It wasn't full time. Full time for us is 25 hours, by the way, not 40. So working 25 hours a week, he's 30 grand a year as a 15-year-old. That's good. Because I want my instructors to be paid enough to live so they don't have to fear where their food is coming from. I want my full-time instructors to be paid enough to live. I can't pay them enough to do great, but I can pay them enough to make a somewhat living, right? Especially if they live with a roommate or something. Why would I pay a 15-year-old that? Because they earned it. Because their skills earned it. Because they were capable of it. And because that's what I would pay an adult doing the exact same job. So I don't care if you're 15. If you can do the job, you get to pay. Simple as that, right? So this is why. This story I'm telling you about me detailing at that place and them refusing to pay me, this is why I'm like that. Because over the next 2 weeks, I'll put together a PowerPoint presentation that asks them why I couldn't at least get a raise, or I proposed that I go on commission, meaning that every dollar they made from cars getting detailed, or every, what did I say? It was like 0.1%, a tenth of a percent of every body shop detail, and 1% of every detail they sold, and 10% of every detail for mechanics. And working commission that way, doing the work I was doing, I could have tripled my income. Tripled it by going on commission. But the good side for them is they didn't have to pay me for work they weren't paid for. I only got paid for work they got paid for. So I thought this was a good proposal. They laughed me out of their office and shut me down. Why would we do that when we can just keep paying you $8 an hour and there's nothing you can do about it? That's what they said to me.
I'm pretty sure that's the day you.
That is the day. That is the day I ripped their time clock off the wall and threw it across the floor. And I left thinking I was fired. But I showed back up the next morning and everybody just kind of avoided me and they left me alone. I still worked there for another several months after that before I finally gave in and quit. And yeah, it was that bad. I had a temper, man. I once threw a 10-pound sledgehammer at a boss of mine. Luckily, it didn't hit him, but it did go through the garage door of the shop. It left a hole. I had a bit of a temper. I've grown since then a little ways, but I was so upset because I was the lowest paid tech in the shop, pulling the most hours, doing the hardest work, and being the lowest paid. And I was so upset by that I eventually quit. And when I quit, I got $3 more a flag hour for commission. And then I went through the same crap. And when I quit, I got $3 more an hour flag commission again. And I got sick of the crap. I was lowest paid again. So then I quit, and I got a year later, I was one of the top 2 highest paid collision repair technicians in all of Oklahoma City because I jumped jobs. So I am not the type of person to tell you to stay with a job and be loyal, because I tried that and it screwed me. So what I did is I started jumping jobs. Every time someone offered me $2, $3 more an hour, I would jump. You know what? I ended up working for the same company 3 different times during that time. During that 2-year period, I worked for the same company 3 different times. They paid me the lowest tech in the city. They were the first ones I worked for and asked for a raise. They refused. I went somewhere else. Then that company ended up hiring me back in at a different one of their locations for more than what I asked for a raise to start with. Worked for them again for a little while. They went, nope, I deserve more money than that. I went to another shop for $4 more an hour, then another one. Then I came back to that same company a 3rd time as the highest paid technician in Oklahoma City. They could have just kept me by giving me raises the whole time, and they could have kept me for far less than they ended up paying me in the end, right?
Hi, tiny human.
Tiny human.
Our tiny human's talking to us.
Oh.
I mean, he's not tiny. He's bigger than
hello,
me now,
hello.
But
All right. Yeah, I kind of went off. He's telling me I crashed out. I did kind of go off on that one. Crash out is fair. Because we got off topic on the why factor. So just a quick recap. Always know your why. Help your kids understand the why. Yes, sometimes you need to make decisions for them, but before you do, try to guide them to make the right decision for themselves. And then if they're still making the wrong decision, you may have to step in and make that decision for them. But if you constantly be telling them why the chores are important, why the things they do are important, why their schoolwork is important, why math is important, why reading is important, why knowing history is important. We all know these things as adults, don't we? If you don't know why those things are important, then you really need to do some self-reflection to understand why these things are important. You cannot budget without math. You cannot create wealth without math. You cannot handle your way through loans without math. You cannot handle your way through investments without math. You cannot handle your way through politics or local elections or voting or anything like that without understanding history, right? You cannot make your way through what was the other subject I brought up? Reading, right? You cannot learn if you cannot read. You cut off half of your available communications if you cannot read. If you have a low attention span because you spend too much time on social media, you have to start doing things to increase that attention span. We're going to do a whole podcast episode on that coming up in the next couple of weeks. I need to write that down. We're going to do a whole thing about how to help your kids increase their attention span, because social media has caused a lot of us adults to lose about 35% of our attention span. And
he plays with the pen and doesn't write it down.
If I write it down, I'm going to forget what I was saying. So yeah, we're going to do an episode on that next week. Just so you guys know, next week's Teammate Talks will either be that one, probably on attention span. It might be on patience, or there was another one I brought up earlier. It might be about that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But we got to go ahead and jump off here. So hope you guys understood what we were getting at. Till we see you guys again, be the best teammates you can be, and be the best at being you.